Hello, everyone, and welcome to the, I think it's the 53rd Stately Office Hours.
50
I'm
something.
not entirely sure of my numbers right now. This is where us, the team at Stately, talk to you about what's been going on with Stately Studio and with XState, give you an update on our work in progress, and answer any of your questions if you've got any. If you have any questions for us, you can join us on YouTube. You can ask us live in the comments there. You could ask us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or in our Discord. You can join our Discord at discord.gg/xstate. And we have a dedicated office hours channel in there. I'm trying to keep my eye on all of these platforms at once. So I will try to get to your questions. YouTube is the easiest one for me, to be honest, because it's right here in the studio. So let's start off, as we always do every week, with our introductions so you can get to know the team who is here today. I'm Laura, and I do advocacy for Stately. David.
I'm David, founder of Stately, creator of XState, and that's it.
That's a lot. It's not that's it.
It's quite a lot. I can keep it shorter than that. My name is Anders, and I do code here at Stately.
Perfect. And Kevin?
Yep, I'm Kevin, and I'm also doing engineering at Stately.
So it's a small team of us today. I think everyone's still catching up after the launch. It was quite exciting and busy time. So we've all been taking it in turns to have a bit of a rest, much needed rest. But we have been getting on with a lot of updates to the studio. We've been releasing, well, we haven't released anything yet, but we have got so many things that are just on the cusp of being ready to be released. So we thought we would share some of those with you today. How about I start off showing everyone the tutorials? Does that work for you folks?
Sounds good.
Let me make sure before I'm going to give my other demo away, unless there we go. And is this by magic? There we go. So we've got coming very soon a new tutorial section in the studio, and you get to it by, as this little state machine here tells you, pressing the help button. And the help button used to have a menu that contained the keyboard shortcuts and reporting an issue and give feedback. That's all still there, but there is now also this sidebar that Farzad has been working very hard on. And it contains a lot of explainers on the basic concepts of state machines and state charts. So things like what is a state machine, states, initial states, all of these concepts that will help you make use of the studio much better and help you model. All of these are explained in a no-code fashion as well. So you don't need to understand any code to be able to get started in the studio. And hopefully that will make it much easier to share with your teammates as well, particularly if they're folks that might be intimidated by the word state machine and want to be able to just get building flows in our studio. And in here, we do have like little explanations. We have some little images to help explain what was going on. I've also got links to all of the demo machines that I've created for these tutorials. So if you want to go in and play with them and fork them and use them yourself, you're welcome to do so. And there's video versions of all these tutorials and how-to information. So if you aren't quite sure how to use any of these elements in the studio, these instructions will tell you how. And you can close that drawer up with the cross button. So that is our tutorials. Anyone else tried any of the tutorials yet on the team?
I watched the videos. The videos are very great. And I highly recommend everyone watch the videos. They're very, very short, nice and bite-sized. So they're good. And Laura and Farzad did a really great job getting these tutorials in the editor. And I think it's really great that it's right there. So as you're playing around, when you're trying to figure stuff out, you could just open the tutorials panel at any time.
Yeah, it helps you work out what everything is. I have to apologize to subscribers. You may have been spammed by many, many tutorial videos last week. I didn't realize that you'd necessarily get a notification for every single one in one go. That's a lesson for me on YouTube. But yeah, there's a playlist here on our YouTube channel as well, where you can watch all of those videos through in one go. They're very short. They're maximum around 2 minutes long, but some of them are far less than a minute even. And if you have any more tutorials that you want us to make, If there's any concepts that you're struggling to understand or you want to know more about, please let us know. I've actually this week at statelyai.canny.io, I've added a new community board, and there you can add any requests for tutorials that you want, and I will happily make them for you if I can do them. So please let us know if there's anything that is confusing you or you'd like to know more about, because I'll happily do that for you. And Fazad, yeah, you're here, so you can take credit for all your wonderful work on the tutorials there. I think we've put them behind the help button for now. They may move in the future to a more intuitive location as the studio design evolves, but right now we thought that was the most logical spot for them. David, do you want to talk briefly about what you've been working on with Safari?
Yeah, so one of the most commonly requested features, or not features, but really just a major use case, was being able to open the editor in Safari. We do have support for Chrome and Firefox, but Safari has been a little weird. And I know a lot of people have been saying, hey, this feels like the whole IE doesn't work era, where we only support specific browsers. And that doesn't feel too good, because ideally we should be supporting all modern browsers. So I completely agree. Plus, I would love to see the editor in an iPad one day with touch controls and everything. One of the biggest problems with how it was implemented was we were putting HTML inside a foreign object. This is what makes the editor so flexible, that we could display HTML alongside other SVG elements like paths and rectangles and other shapes. However, Safari doesn't like this too much. It renders foreign objects a lot differently. I was going to say a little bit differently, but it's very different than other browsers do. And so we had to go for an alternate solution. So I embarked on a major refactor, heavily inspired by TL Draw. I actually met up with Steve Ruiz in London the other day. If you haven't checked out TL Draw, I highly recommend it. I think it's tldraw.app. It is a diagramming tool, and eventually we might actually move towards it for a rendering layer so that you could add a whole bunch of extra shapes. Anyway, in TL Draw, they have a different strategy where they put the SVG on an HTML canvas instead of the other way around. We were putting HTML on an SVG canvas. And so that means that when we're rendering shapes like paths and rectangles and stuff, each one of those is actually in its own individual SVG wrapper inside the actual canvas. And so as a result of this refactor and getting rid of foreign objects, we have actually successfully been able to render the editor in Safari in a way that it works with, it just works the same as in Chrome and Firefox. There's still some things around performance that are Safari specific that Farzad has been helping a lot with. So we are just going to be doing a lot of testing, and hopefully we're going to be getting a Safari release soon.
It sounds like we're getting really close to that point as well. And you've been working pretty much non-stop on this. It's been a huge amount of work, a big refactor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of emblematic of what's been going on since the launch. Just before we started the stream, Kevin, we were discussing that we're handling as much user feedback as we can. For example, getting everything working really well in Safari, but we're also starting to handle the technical debt as well, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right, Lara. It's really a nice balance between getting input, but also kind of working behind the scenes and taking a break. So in addition to working on features that are being requested, or of course, bug fixes, some of the things that we've been looking into are some of the technologies that we've been using. So for example, Anders has actually been spearheading the effort to migrate us from GraphQL over to TRPC. And a lot of this is going to be much easier to work with and a lot less code. Actually, we got rid of a lot of code. So we're doing things like that. We're also, experimenting with some other things in terms of testing. So, for example, Playwright, in addition to some of the Cypress testing and things that we've been using for the UI. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, Anders, would you tell us a bit more? I'm not particularly au fait with what GraphQL and TRPC are, so would you explain a little bit for us? And because I think I saw that you removed like 13,000 lines of code or something like that.
Yeah, but to be fair, I added like almost 7,000 as well. So, but it is a lot less code to do it with TRPC, and yeah. So one of the reasons we started to look into it was because we have our own GraphQL layer, and we were actually using a library which is end of life or very nearing end of life. So we had to do something, either find another way to do our GraphQL layer. But then TRPC started popping up everywhere, and there's a version 10 right around the corner. So we started to look into it a bit. And one of the really cool things about TRPC is that you don't have to redefine all your types. So when you use GraphQL, you have like your backend, you have your database, and that has a set of types. We use Prisma, like the super cool database client, which gives you all the types for free from your database model. And then we added that to our GraphQL layer where we had to redefine all the types. And then we consumed all those types in our front end. But since we're working inside a mono repo where every package is available, we ended up in situations where it's like, okay, so which type should I import in this file? Should it be the one from Prisma, the one from our GraphQL layer? And TRPC is much more based on just type inference. So you don't have to redefine all your types. So you basically just have one set of types. And yeah, that was something we tested and we really liked it. So, and we are nearing the move to TRPC. We're using the version 10 release candidates they're putting out new release candidates every day, it seems, and we're trying to keep up. But the technology is really cool. So if you need to do some fun stuff with your backend, I definitely recommend you to check out TRPC if you're using TypeScript, of course.
Anders, I want to just add one other thing. We're talking about this as, sort of behind the scenes, which it is, but at the same time, I think we can anticipate some benefits for users as well. So for example, we'll be taking advantage of some caching and things like that, so that things will respond more and be more readily available, and switching between UI. So I think that we can look forward to some future demos.
Yeah, should definitely give some noticeable improvements to the entire application once it's implemented.
Oh, fabulous. That's good to know as well. Sometimes it's hard to demo, like we were saying about the Safari improvements as well. It's always hard to show those things, but sometimes you feel them more than you see them, don't you?
Yeah. And of course, it's much more nuanced than like the few bullet points here, because GraphQL is still great for so many other reasons. TRPC doesn't solve everything, but it solves a good amount of the problems we had right now. So.
Yeah, no technology can be all things to all people. I think everything has its pros and cons for sure. Well, one of the other things that I wanted to show you this week was a fun little demo that I made yesterday. It's not this. So since we can now embed images using markdown in our descriptions, I decided to update my little dog machine. So if you're familiar with our introduction to state machines and state charts that I wrote probably about a year ago now, maybe even longer than that, that's been in our docs for all that time. And I thought, hang on a minute, we've got images. So I can now put these cute little puppies inside the machines themselves. And so now I've done a series of machines. I could probably even make some more. And what I'm using here is, so this is on the state. If you use the state details panel, you can see the description. I have markdown where I've got an SVG file that I've put on GitHub. Not an ideal image hosting solution, but we will get to that at some point. And so it's a really great way to be able to include these little illustrative features inside of your machines. And if you make them SVGs like this with transparent backgrounds, they blend really nicely into your machine. So I also made one for a dog walk. And so we've got the waiting and the walking and the running, and when the walk is complete and the dog goes to sleep. Another good thing about using transparent SVGs is if you switch to light mode, you can also, the images will work as well. I have actually done a version of these images with the slightly different colored dog so that it's a little easier to see in light mode, but it's not a bad effect. So I would highly recommend it to anyone who's trying to use their flows to communicate with other people on their team and they want to add those little visual elements in. I have actually had a sneak peek at some of the public machines in the Discover view and seen folks using things like logos to represent different technologies inside of their state descriptions. And of course, you can add them to your event nodes as well. You can do the descriptions, transition details, scroll down, and if you just put your markdown in here, you can put links and everything in there too. So that was just a little bit of fun that I was having yesterday.
It looks so cool.
Yeah, really nice. I love it that the shadows kind of come with the transparent, SVGs as well.
Yeah, it just
It'd be really
it
cool.
makes it interact
Oh,
with,
right.
and it's nicely laid out, the description, so you didn't have to worry about padding around the images or anything. Although you do need to take care of the size that they're at, because if you put a massive image in there, it will come out massive. So maybe that's something we have to think about in the future with the design, that maybe we give people a means to resizing their images or something inside of the states.
Maybe we can offer a palette of images as part of the UI in the future.
Yeah, I've long been using emoji in my state machines, and that's a really straightforward, simple way of getting a little bit of imagery and color in there. But images is a whole nother level, especially when you can do custom stuff. It is very cool.
One of our future planned features is to actually have a drag and drop experience where you could just drop it right inside. And on top of that, also editing the markdown inside of the state node itself instead of having to go to that side panel. And Nick's not here, but he would, probably just agree with the fact that we want more things to be on the canvas rather than shoved off to the side.
Yeah, and Nick's not here, so I can also say Nick's been doing some really cool stuff with the colors and potentially being able to color the nodes in your state charts, which everyone's going to love. People have been asking for it a lot because it really helps with that communication aspect. And so we're very excited to get going with that too. Now, did anyone who is hanging out with us live today have any questions that you wanted to ask us? You know where you can ask them in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, in our Discord. We will get to them if we can. Does anyone on the team have anything else that you wanted to share this week?
While we're waiting for questions, I could just talk about some of the things that we're working on. Actually, there's a lot of things. Just to give everyone an idea, in this quarter, until the end of the year, we do have a lot of things planned, mostly around improvements and adding just a ton of features. Some of the features that are coming soon, you've all have been asking for importing from code. So we're going to start with being able to import machines from JSON, and then eventually, JavaScript and TypeScript, just like you could do with the visualizer. So that will be coming eventually. Another thing too is different exports. So being able to export to Code Sandbox and Stack Blitz and other things like that. I know that Kevin and Farzad were working on that. Gavin, who's also not on the call right now, has been working on machine revisions. And so this has been one of those important things where if you accidentally open an old version of a machine and that's automatically saved, you lose the new version of the machine. So you should be able to save machines as snapshots so that you could go back in time and say, hey, I actually want this previous version, and you could restore to that version. There's a whole bunch of other things, uploading images, styling like Laura talked about, where we could actually color nodes. Hopefully we get to demo that, within the coming months, because that's going to be really, really awesome. Just a bunch of things, but we do have a few questions. So
yeah, these are all features that we want as well. So there's a lot of prioritizing going on. And while we're just talking about that, I want to point out that you can also go to statelyai.canny.io if you want to request any particular feature or upvote on those existing requests. We've got a lot of popular features in there that people are after, and we are using those upvotes as a means of prioritizing what gets developed first. So please let us know what you want. That's your feedback is what we live off right now. That's for sure. So getting to some questions. Tom says, how far off XState v5 are we? And don't worry, Tom, we don't give an update on this every week, and we certainly don't expect you to attend every office hours. We love it if you do, but we don't expect you to. So we're happy to answer the same questions every week if we have to.
Yeah, so we're
David.
slowly but surely working on version 5. One of the biggest parts is in a PR that's pretty much ready to go in. I just have to add a few tests, and this is going to be a major part of v5 that treats pretty much I was going to say everything, but it treats a lot of things as behaviors for an actor in the same way that you could interpret machines. So for example, you could now treat a promise, a reducer, an observable, a callback, et cetera, as an actor, and you could interpret that so that if you don't want to use machines, you don't even have to. I mean, obviously you should. Machines are pretty much the feature complete actor, where the other actors are just, conveniences. But so that's going to be a major feature addition. And then once that's out, we're going to release a new alpha version, which, by the way, XState v5 is an alpha, and you could play around with it today, but there's not too much documentation. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you really, really want to start kicking the tires on the new features. But yeah, so now that we've launched the Stately Studio and, we have a little bit of time, we are going to be dedicating a lot more time towards v5, hopefully having some sort of a beta at the end of the year and then doing a launch next year.
Well, you heard it here first. Matthias says, is there anything planned to improve the workflow of huge state charts? My chart is becoming so big, it's getting tough to edit and understand. I can split it up into actors, but that adds complexity. So it's kind of a workflow question, but also kind of a modeling question.
Yeah. So there's two approaches to this. One of them we talked about before, and that's the ability to collapse nodes, which is a highly requested feature. And so there's a lot of changes that need to go in for that, like relative positioning versus absolute positioning of nodes within other nodes, and making sure that things align correctly when you collapse versus expand stuff. But that could be one way of reducing complexity. Because state charts allow you to refine nodes and have nesting of nodes, you should be able to collapse them and see things at specific levels. Or even without collapsing, you should be able to just step out of a level and look at a higher level view of the machine without having to worry about all of the child states. Another idea, both of these ideas can and will be done, but actually Farzan and I were talking about it earlier today, is the idea of a reader/focus mode, where you're basically walking through the state chart state by state instead of having to look at all the states at once. And this could be really good, especially when you need to focus on just one small part of the state chart, the transitions that are involved with it, the actions, and some other metadata. So focus/reader mode, whatever we want to call it, that's also going to be something that we're going to be working on.
I don't know if like most of our community is old enough to remember the RPG text-based games that we had before, like in the command line that you could play by like writing commands. And I remember that there was an RPG game that you were supposed to battle against trolls and everything by saying go up and right and stuff. And then you hit like a dead end, you had to retract back and stuff. I use the same analogy to David today, and I said that we need the same thing for state charts, where you need to know what are the next possible steps, but you don't care about anything other than the current one that you're focusing on, the current step. I feel like somebody shared a state chart about, so basically they modeled a multi-part upload streaming thing using a state chart on Discord, and it was really interesting to see how it's modeled. So I went to understand how it works by reading through the state chart, and I get the point that Matthias is saying, that it's really hard right now, because with big enough state charts, it's a little hard to keep track of what's happening right now. So yeah, reader mode helps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, if you've got these really big state charts that you need some help with, that you think that could be really good use cases for us, please share them with us. Like, send us the share links for them, because it would be a really useful way to help us understand how we might be able to break this down in a way that's more usable for you as well. It's good to see your big state charts. I mean, we want to see all your state charts. Share any state charts with us. Like, we love them all equally. They don't have to be big ones.
Yeah.
Grant says, looking forward to importing from code and revisions. And Martin says, with revisions, that's very good news, since I randomly switch PCs and it always scares me. That's a really interesting use case as well. And Martin says, I know it's in the works, but I can't wait for tags to be in the editor.
Yeah, so currently I'm actually working on metadata for states first, just because that's one big missing part. And adding tags is pretty simple on top of that. It's just how we display the tags on the state nodes, and also considering colors and styling. We could start thinking about how we could like give certain states with certain tags a specific color. So that'd be fun.
That would be cool.
I'm going to reveal a secret. Tags have been there from the beginning. We just haven't shown them the UI.
Yeah. So they're there.
Good insider knowledge.
Yeah.
So they're there, but you can't use them.
Yes.
Stephen asks, are there any plans to expand the documentation to include examples that compare vanilla React solutions to XState implementations? Well, that's a really good idea, and we can for sure do that. Yeah.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
There is a lot of work going on with the documentation right now. I've been chipping away at it for quite a long time, and sort of trying to structure it in a way that is helps everything be easy to understand for folks who are new to the studio, as well as people who've been using XState for a much longer time. And so it is really good to know that these are the kinds of examples that you're after. On our Canny board at statelyai.canny.io, we actually have a specific examples board that Kevin and I set up. And that's where you can submit requests for specific examples like this, because these are all things that we really want to be able to make really useful examples for you that can help you bring the studio and bring XState into your day-to-day work. And so please let us know what would help you make the most out of that. And Carla says, or no React examples.
Yeah. It is important to note that the XState documentation is completely framework agnostic. So React is just one of the possible implementations. And so that's on purpose.
Yeah, as Scott says, this would be nice for all frameworks. Yes, we should do all frameworks and no frameworks.
We've even had, I think, a couple of people in the community, Tim Deschriver comes to mind, but basically take the same machine and give a tutorial on how it works in like 4 different frameworks.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, we should definitely show more examples like that.
Yeah, sounds like a good challenge for the team as well. Someone set up a machine with one framework and then everyone has to try to port it to the other frameworks. It shouldn't be too tricky either.
Exactly.
Great. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to share this week? David, you are, and we've mentioned this before, at Öredev next week in Malmö.
That's right. Yeah, my talk is going to be coding complex app logic visually. And yeah, I'm going to be talking about state charts, as you could guess, which is a nice change in pace. I've been talking about use effect for the last few months. So, I'm going to be demoing the editor, talking about XState, but also talking about just why state machines and state charts are good. Even if you don't want to use a library, they're just a really, really great modeling tool for complex logic, as many of you watching probably know already.
Yeah, and that is going to be a fantastic conference. There's loads of great speakers. It's run by really lovely people, and Anders is going to be there. So it checks all the boxes. So if you are local, if you're in Malmö or the south of Sweden or in Denmark, head over to Öredev, because you get the opportunity to meet both David and Anders, and that would be a win in my book.
Yeah, please hang out with us. We're both friendly. Anders is probably friendlier than me. So...
No, you're both really friendly. They're very friendly. Jay asks, is anyone using XState with Qwik, use machine, etc.? I don't know what Qwik is, so anyone enlighten me?
So Qwik is an up-and-coming framework that its main selling point is it eliminates hydration, which means once you just load a web app or something using Qwik, you get 0 kilobytes of JavaScript, or I think basically 0. I'm not sure what magic they do to to make that work, but the JavaScript only gets streamed in when you start interacting with the app. So it's on demand, basically. So Qwik, as the name implies, is meant to be a very, very quick framework with really good benchmarks. So, and also it feels just like React. So I could see Qwik just gaining a lot of popularity pretty soon. But yeah, there's no reason that XState wouldn't work with Qwik. I think that you should make it a request in Canny, and we'll see what we could do.
Fabulous. That's statelyai.canny.io. I think now I've said it 3 times. I think Canny is going to appear in a mirror somewhere. So I think that is everything. We've covered a huge amount in a relatively short amount of time this office hours. We're getting really efficient at this. So if you have any questions for us during the week, please feel free to ask us on our Discord, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, pretty much anywhere you can find us. Just shout at us, tell us what you want, what you need, and we will get back to you. Thank you for joining us this week. It's been really lovely having you folks here in the chat. It's been really lovely having the rest of you team here as well. And we will maybe not see you next week. We'll see. It depends, because I think Anders and David will be traveling back from Öredev. But hey, if we've got a lot to share, maybe the rest of us will come at you with an office hours. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you again later. Bye-bye.